Welcome to the Airline Pilot Podcast. I'm Jason Ambrosi. Air traffic controllers are some of our most critical partners as pilots for safe and efficient operations. They are also powerful members of our union family, working with us to advance the rights of workers. This episode, I'm honored to be joined by Nick Daniels, the president of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, or NATCA. Thanks for being here, Nick.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate the partnership, brother.
For our listeners who may not be familiar with you or with NATCA, can you introduce yourself and your union?
Absolutely. I started off my journey in aviation as a United States Marine, serving as an air traffic controller from 1998 to 2003, and then got hired by the FAA in 2003. Started at Addison Tower, and then moved over to Fort Worth Center. I spent my last 20 years at Fort Worth Center controlling aircraft and served in various roles ever since. In 2006, we had a labor management, we'll just call it a straight out fight, where we got imposed a contract on us. And I learned right then more than ever how important a union is and standing up for the person to my left and right. No one else was going to do it for us. So I got involved. I was elected area representative, and for 19 consecutive years, I've been in some level of an elected position. You know, you hear the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. Yes, we represent 10,800 certified professional controllers, approximately 2,000 trainees, but we also represent a lot of engineers, architects, and other aviation safety professionals as well that are all federal workers. And then we also are federal contract towers. We have a lot of air traffic facilities that are out there that are not FAA owned or FAA run, that are run by 4 different companies, and we represent many of those controllers around the country as well.
America's aging ATC infrastructure has been an issue for years. And right now, there's a bright spotlight on it because of the recent events such as the NOTAM system outage and issues in Newark and Denver. Can you tell us what your members have to deal with on the ground, and how can we fix it?
Yeah, for the last decade, NACA has been out yelling about these issues, talking about them with Congress, talking about them in every forum we can discuss them. But like you said, here we are now, front and center. And usually when an air traffic controller is in the news, it's not for a good reason. For the air traffic controllers, this is by far the lowest morale that I've ever seen in my career. We've always dealt with a myriad of issues, but right now, air traffic controllers are single-handedly the backbone to the system holding it together. Working 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, so 60 hours in a work week, usually only 4 days off in an entire month, because there's only 10,800 certified professional controllers. It takes 2 to 3 years to have a highly skilled, highly trained air traffic controller. And we should have 14,663. So we're approximately 3,600 certified controllers away from being where we need to be, which obviously impacts not only fatigue, morale, modernization, and everything else in between. So the air traffic controllers, while dealing with all these issues, are still probably the most proud workforce I've ever seen, because they know they're shouldering the burden and the responsibilities to make sure that every single person takes a plane, operates it in the national airspace system, or every passenger that moves through United States airspace, that we're the reason that they're going to get home safely. And that's something that we not only focus on day in and day out, but we are going to ensure that our voices are heard. That change is needed now because of what you're seeing in the system. A long overdue focus on the training and of the next generation of air traffic controllers, the hiring of air traffic controllers, and the modernizing of the system. Those controllers deserve equipment that works, and the flying public does as well as all those that you represent in ALPA.
Absolutely. Newark has highlighted these issues. We have had issues in other cities like Denver. How are controllers trained to deal with these kind of system outages or emergencies like this to limit the impact on safety?
Air traffic controllers rely on their training when things go wrong, but what you don't train on is all your equipment breaking around you and not having the appropriate tools and resources. I'm sure you train with an engine outage, or you train in bad weather. Those things can happen, but when you have all the events occur simultaneously, or the entire plane just shuts off, that's going to cause an entire new world of problem. But also what it introduces in the back of your mind, especially for those controllers that control Philadelphia Area C, that deal with that Newark airport. It's like driving down the road at 70 miles an hour and somebody just covering your eyes from behind and say, keep driving. If I told you that's going to just happen to you randomly on another day at another time, you likely won't drive 70 miles an hour or down the same road, because you don't know what that looks like. Air traffic controllers having equipment that's unreliable is going to put us in a position to not only operate differently, but not operate at the efficient levels that not only the pilots expect, but also making decisions that are more tempered, reducing capacity, reducing that efficiency. That's how we overcome these safety events. Is we know the safest place for an airplane is on the ground. And that's the way that we have to control this system given the dynamics that we have today.
Makes perfect sense. If you don't know what's around the corner, you're gonna proceed with caution, right?
Absolutely.
So how are you supporting your members who are dealing with these outages in staffing and aging facilities and everything else?
Number one is ensuring that their contractual rights are upheld, that their lawful rights are upheld, and not letting this narrative be spun. That somehow this is an air traffic controller's problem, that they go through a traumatic event and that they can't take time off of work. We have a duty, we have a responsibility to be fit every time that we walk into work, just like pilots do. We take that serious. And if we went through a period where somebody took out your radar, took out your communications, and said, jump right back in and try it again, and you knew that you could put aircraft in possible conflict or harm, you need time to decompress from that event. So it's not only protecting them there, but it's getting out and advocating and telling their story for once. For far too long, I think we've worked internally to deal with these issues. We haven't gone out and a huge thank you to every ALPA member that's out there. A huge thank you to you, Jason, that is helping us tell this story that's long overdue to be told. It's talking about the issues and not trying to say, if we just ignore them, maybe somebody will overcome them throughout time. That's how we have to support these air traffic controllers. Not only just doing it in a way of saying the words out loud, now they need the tangible results to come from it. Seeing the trainees arrive at their building, seeing the investments be made into the simulations training so that way they can improve their training times, seeing new technologies brought in and seeing the equipment that's outdated finally leave and them have equipment that they can rely on, operate with. And once those things are in hand, I think air traffic controllers will finally say, okay, somebody saw, somebody heard, and it's up to leaders like us to get out there and tell that message for them so they can do their job.
Look, I don't think many of our members realize just the working conditions that some of your members have to deal with.
If you were to go to an air traffic control facility today, you would think that you're taking a trip back in history to see some level of a Smithsonian. Unfortunately, that's most of our facilities today. There's not a facility that I could go to today where they have all the updated, newest equipment, because it's been a level of stop and go funding for decades that's led us here. Every government shutdown, every time that we buy a piece of equipment, many of the busy airports that you fly into will have a piece of equipment called ASDX. People know ASDX and the capabilities it has. It only exists and properly operates in approximately 30 facilities in the entire country. We have 250 towers. So that's why it's important right now to go out. We came up ourselves, work with management as NATCA and FAA to do what was called the Surface Awareness Initiative. We bought something off the shelf that was ready to go to give us a better sense of what is happening on that surface, so we have more situational awareness. And I know that's something that pilots strive for, is having situational awareness, and it's something air traffic controllers need as well. Not only do you walk into a facility that you had to climb, because it's so old, in an elevator shaft, it's been out for 6 months. I climbed 15 flights of stairs. I finally stopped sweating and I take position. And while that sounds awful, do it 6 days a week for months on end. That becomes old really quick. But then I have the safety of the airspace to ensure on top of that. We need our air traffic controllers mentally fit, ready to go. And then in those same facilities, quite often, not only are you dealing with outdated technology, but then you're dealing with no air conditioning, no heat, not being able to get technicians there because our technicians that are out there, they're understaffed as well. So all these problems mount on top of one another. And this is why such a heavy investment is finally needed for the system, or we're going to see the reduction in capacity that no one wants to see in the national airspace system.
Certainly now is the time. We've been dripping investment in this critical infrastructure for decades, and that just won't work. So it's time, and I'm glad we're working together on this. We speak about advocacy, and one of our ALPA's approach to advocacy here in DC. How does NATCA approach your advocacy here in town?
Number one, it's led by our membership. And when our members go out and speak as the experts of the system, that is crucial and key. The amazing thing about the NATCA government affairs staff is that they embrace the member activists and helping make sure that they get a chance to go and tell their story. The members of Congress, their staff, or the member themselves want nothing more than that real world experience of what are you dealing with in those facilities and what does the future of the system look like? Because America does hinge on aviation. If we don't have a robust aviation system, we see a decline in the economy, we see a decline in progress, we see a decline or we see an increase in risk, which is a reduction in safety. And the American people don't deserve it. The pilots don't deserve it. And we need to ensure that we're out there telling them the real world firsthand experience day in and day out. And it's okay to tell that truth because I think for the first time, I don't even think, I believe for the first time in my 25-year career that this administration, along with Secretary Duffy's vision, the Modern Skies Coalition, and the entire aviation industry coming together and saying the same thing is monumental. And the pilots and air traffic controllers being the front of that line, screaming for what we need, is going to be the key to success and what brings it across the finish line.
Well, I couldn't agree more. We at ALPA have an incredible staff that are in our shop that carry our message every day. They have those relationships with the staff on the Hill. But getting our pilots in there, just like you do with your controllers, to share their stories, share their message, that packs one hell of a 1-2 punch on making sure that we advocate. And both ALPA and NATCA do one heck of a job on advocacy for our members. Another thing that impressed me about NATCA is how strong your PAC is. Here in town, we understand how important the Political Action Committee is, but you guys have just been an absolute standout. So tell me what your key to success is.
I think number one, it's get comfortable with being uncomfortable talking about the PAC. That's been something that I've said for the longest time. Leaders have to stand in the front and be able to believe in what they're saying. Every member of NACA's National Executive Board maxes out their PAC. It's $192.30 a paycheck, $5,000 annually. There's only one way to say that you believe in something, and that's by maxing it out and standing together and then showing people. Now, we're not asking every one of you to do that. And I can tell you just for the air traffic controllers alone, in general membership, once you expand outside air traffic controllers, engineers, architects, and others that we represent, is 15,000 in totality. 15,000 members, and if you only have 10,000 of those gifts, so only 2/3. But if they only give $20, that's a $10.5 million an election cycle PAC. $20 for 10,000 people. That would blow most PACs out of the water. NACA sits at $8 million right now, and about 39 to 40% of NACA members give. We continue to want to expand ours as well, but we also want to show what can be done. And that's by engaging the member activist, showing them the importance of the relationship, and not just sitting back stagnant and saying, we're just going to donate to Democrats or we're just going to donate to Republicans. It's about showing what that money does. You don't buy votes. And it's a huge part of this is dispelling the myths and rumors that are out there that, oh, it's a dirty system. This is how the system works, is going out and showing them it's not a dirty system. It's just the system.
You don't have to like the system.
Exactly.
But it is the system.
Exactly.
It's the system that we operate in, and having that access is absolutely essential to getting our message across.
Whether you're sitting with a staffer or with the congressperson themselves, you want them to know who you are. And the PAC is going to give you those opportunities to have that FaceTime with them so that way you can speak to your issue. One of the most amazing things I ever saw and what made me want to max out my PAC well before I was the NACA president and a regional vice president was I was sitting there and I was watching two congresspersons speak. They were sitting there across from each other. One was Republican and one was Democrat. The great thing is you couldn't tell who the Republican was or who the Democrat was when they were speaking about our issues because they were so well versed and so educated in it because our members had believed in the PAC, built those relationships. And today I can call on a friend like Congressman Pete Sessions and work with him that we built a relationship with in Texas and ask him for guidance, advice, help, or even just building a relationship with the secretary. And while it may have started with some PAC donations, it really became the investment in one another of how we're going to navigate the world of DC along with being a federal employee or a union member.
Yeah, I like that word, investment, because I've used that myself. It's an investment. Donating to the PAC is an investment in our future, right? We invest in our 401k. We invest in other things. We invest in 529 plans for our kids to go to college, whatever it is. This is an investment in our profession and in our future. So well done.
Yeah, we tell NATCA members all the time, if you want to find a way to invest in yourself, your union dues, invest in the future for your now and in the future for your career, profession, and ultimately benefit you. But there's no singular greater investment in protecting and building on what you have than the PAC. One goes to the collective, a PAC goes directly to you and saying, I need to make this investment to ensure that my paycheck is in a good place, my future is going to be bright, and that my union has a chance to advocate on our behalf.
Absolutely. Why do you think it's so important for controllers and other federal workers to be unionized?
First, as in any union, no one's going to speak for you. No one's going to come to your rescue, your aid, and tell your story better than you. If air traffic controllers sat out and just waited for somebody else to tell you what you needed as air traffic controller, it would never happen. No one knows this occupation, probably other than outside of pilots knowing the importance and our amazing relationship that we have together. But you can't ask an entire pilots union to go tell the story of air traffic controllers. And it's a check and balance to the system. You have to be smart with how that check and balance works. That's what the importance of a federal union is. The check and balance to the government, to the system, but ultimately it maximizes the tax dollar for the American public. If you don't want fraud, waste, and abuse, which I think that this country's been loud and clear on saying that we think that there's fraud in the system, we think that there are issues that can be tackled. There is no greater group to have pointing out fraud, waste, and abuse than a group of workers saying, I can show you exactly where that is and I'll point to it today. We need those American workers around, but we need to also deal with the issues when it comes forward of, okay, just like a microcosm of anything else, if somebody's abusing that, we should solve that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we need to cut unions out in order to move forward faster or together. We just need to focus on the leaders who we elect, being able to identify the issues we need and set priorities for where we're going.
Yeah, hope is not a strategy, right? And we, controllers and pilots, are true stakeholders in this system. And if we don't have a voice, we're not going to achieve a safe and secure, as well as good working conditions and benefits and everything that our members deserve for being true stakeholders in this profession. So I couldn't agree more on the importance of both of us being good union leaders and supporting our members.
I think for the first time in at least my history, Jason, getting to sit down with you, ALPA, other union leaders that are out there, is taking the time to be able to not only learn each other's story, sitting down and doing things just like this, being able to tell each other's stories. Being able to, when I go into a congressional meeting or when I stand on a stage somewhere else, the investment that you, Jason, have made as a leader and shown and demonstrated your leadership is I can now go and speak about why the importance of two in a cockpit and be able to hit that soundbite, not only on behalf of a pilot, on behalf of my ALPA brothers and sisters, and you being able to stand on stage and speak to an issue with controller staffing. Right now, our members are looking for people to have a voice. And if it's just one of us doing it, that will be ultimately the death of us. But if it's all of us being able to talk to each other's issues, that's where we'll thrive, and that's where we'll show the value of what union is and what the value of an American worker is in this system and how we can get our voice out exponentially.
Yeah, look, managements don't give us pay and working conditions and benefits just because they're nice. It's because we negotiated. We have to stand up for our members and recognize the significant contributions they do to keep the system the safest in the world and keep the planes running on time and efficiently like you do.
Amen to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently joined you for NATCA's 20th biennial convention out there in San Francisco. I was honored to accept your invitation. Today, you also joined ALPA members at our annual legislative summit. We've touched on this, but how important are those relationships between the two unions at a moment like this?
Like you said, really capitalizing and capturing the moment of getting to see you on stage speak to 1,000 delegates of air traffic controllers and them carry that message back to their facility. Your quote has now run wild through the air traffic control ranks is it's not about just being loud. It's about knowing the right moment when you need to be loud. And you standing on stage and delivering that, it's had an effect on our membership where I liken it to this. My son used to play baseball when he was younger. I could go on and tell him how he needed to move his hands and how he needed to get to that bat to the ball. And then if I paid somebody for however much for an hour, a coach, to tell him the exact same thing, he somehow heard that person over me. That's the beauty of having two of us speak similar messages. And it's not we have to work extremely hard to be able to carry each other's message. It's about knowing they come from a place of union, they come from a place of leadership, they come from a place of collective spirit, because our unity will forever be everyone's greatest threat. That is what people are scared of, is our unity. What is ALPA and NATCA going out and telling, this is what we collectively need, and this is the investment that's needed in us. So I think every chance that we get to amplify one another's voices just goes back to show all the other union leaders in the country. It's really setting the stage for this is how you lead unions together through times where many others are getting written out of existence with a pen.
Right.
This is a moment where we get to show, no, we not only came, we saw, but we grew, we incentivized, and we built opportunity. And building those opportunities made it better for those that we represent.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback that when we get complacent, we can take each other for granted, right? Our pilots can, quite honestly, just take the great work that your members do for granted because you do it so well and you do it without most of the time any disruptions, even with the old system and everything else, that making sure that our members understand how hard your job is right now and supporting you in that position, because I can only imagine how tough it is on some of those days when you have a 6-day work week for 10 hours a day after climbing 15 stories or more to get to work.
I couldn't agree more. And I know we both struggle with life is hard right now, right? We're talking about modernization. We're talking about controller training that takes 2 to 3 years, that there's no solution overnight. Yet we all have lives as well. And I think people forget that aspect of it. Pilots deal with so many of the same things that air traffic controllers do when it comes to mental health and issues that are out there. And when you don't even have time to take care of yourself, how that just exacerbates all these other issues to go along with it. We have an archaic medical system. We ultimately need to invest in people. You can modernize in a system all you want. You can throw as many bodies as you want, but if you don't invest in the people and ensure that the human component is what's looked after, not just the equipment component, not just what's the latest thing in the airplane or the latest airplane that you're going to fly, is how is that person protected? How is their mental health protected? What kind of ways that we can look at preventing issues? Not only prevent safety issues in the NAS, but prevent issues in people's lives and get them help that they need until we have a system that says, I'll wait until you're broken and then we'll see if we can fix you and then put you back in the cockpit or controlling again because now you're a limited liability. That is no way to run a system. And I think as labor leaders getting out there and speaking on an issue like that's where the true investment comes from. We can have all the great equipment, we can have all the staffing we need, but if we don't take care of the controller or the pilot, ultimately all those things will fail.
Yeah, nothing works without the people. Regardless of how good the technology gets, it's the people that keep us as safe as we are today. So thank you for that. I completely agree. You're talking to almost 80,000 pilots from the U.S. and Canada right now. As a controller, is there anything you want us to know about communicating with you all in our day-to-day work as pilots, or anything that can help us work together more smoothly in our day jobs, flying airplanes or controlling airplanes?
I don't know if we have another 3 hours for this podcast, but we may have to do a whole run on that, and that would be a great venture for the future. First, let me say for all those listening, thank you. Thank you for the investment in us day in and day out and for putting your safety in our hands. There's no better advocate out there for us than pilots. We all have our tough days, and we get to wear those and show those. They usually lead into a pretty funny exchange between controllers and air traffic controllers. But one is the word blocked doesn't help us. I think I would get things thrown at me if I was to walk back in and not take this moment to say that on behalf of the air traffic controllers that's not a part of it. Also, asking somebody to monitor a frequency doesn't mean keying up and telling you you're there monitoring the frequency. That means please just wait for me to call you. Those are probably two that I see the most. And I think asking for help when you need it, that's the key. Sometimes the phraseology needs to go out the window. Things need to calm down and say, hey man, I don't know what exactly you're saying or what I need to communicate right now, but this is the help I need. When you say those words to an air traffic controller, everything else goes out the window. That's a moment that I need to dial in and really pay attention to what's happening out there. And don't be afraid to say it. Air traffic controllers aren't finding a way to try to turn you in. I'm not asking for you to copy down a number. That's not my goal or my key ever. It's to keep the system safe. And by you telling me exactly what you need, that's okay. But also realizing and hearing on that frequency when I'm stressed, when the controllers that I represent are out there and you just hear them sinking. You hear their voice pitch change. You hear them start to hit a different level of urgency. Patience is key, but if something seems wrong, say it. It's a team sport. And the more that we can work in this together and not find ways to make it harder on one another when we're having rough days, or, man, I would say, I don't want to leave without saying this, how much we appreciate when a pilot just says, man, hey, great job. Thank you for that. Man, those days, there's no letter that management's ever going to give me. When I go home, decompress at the end of the day, then that pilot who took the time to recognize and knew the job that I was doing, put them in a position for success, and that also had my back that entire time as well.
Look, thank you so hard to come by on this. So I echo your sentiment exactly. And we are on the same team. So I appreciate us being on that same team together, pilots and controllers. So Nick, we hear a lot about the Newarks of the world. The big airports are having issues, New York airspace. How about the little airports? Are there unique challenges there? Are they fine? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it is difficult sometimes to get out and tell the story of the air traffic controller that's working in Abilene, Texas, that was either new to their career or they've been there for 10 to 15 years. Some people get to a facility in the middle of Nebraska. That's where their family was. They're happy to be there, and that's where they want to spend their entire career. But that's the rarity. Air traffic controllers want to move to the busier, more complex parts of this country. I went from Addison, Texas to Fort Worth Center. While the commuting distance wasn't great, the challenges were, but also understanding that I had just as busy days at Addison Tower as I did at Fort Worth Center. We're ranked predicated upon complexity. I was as busy at Addison Tower as I ever was at Fort Worth Center. It's just not as routine. It's not as often, and it's not as regular. So I don't want anyone to ever think that just because you're flying to an airport that has a 6,000 feet runway, one runway, maybe one taxiway, that's not a complex airport. It still takes the same level of training. Their pay is definitely on the lower end and needs to be improved. They're dealing with the economy pressures that everyone else is, and getting a chance to move in that career, that puts you in a position to start thinking, is this profession for me? We need those air traffic controllers more than ever. We need the investment in all the air traffic controllers to have a system that's staffed enough for them to be able to move to a facility that they either want to be at or that will pay more, to have pay adequate at their current facilities. And that's one of the things that, is important to partner with this administration, is realizing that investment. We had a great first step on recruitment and retention. And now we have to work on how do we continue to recognize this workforce that's working understaffed? How do we incentivize them to stay in this career field? And then how do we work on ensuring that they're given the proper tools and resources to modernize it on top of it as well? So I appreciate that opportunity to give a shout out to all those air traffic controllers that are out there, because they are an amazing workforce, but they also are ready to be recognized by the government, by our employer, for the challenges that we face and where we're going to go.
Yeah, look, on behalf of the almost 80,000 members of the Airline Pilots Association, we couldn't do what we do without what you and your members do. Thank you again for your leadership. Thank you for your members' day in and day out work. That's why we're here to partner with you and make sure that we can get you a new air traffic control system, get you updated facilities, because now's the time. If we don't do it now, it's never going to get done.
Couldn't agree more, brother.
Thank you for joining us at our legislative summit and this podcast. Thank you for your partnership, brother. We need each other more than ever before, and we need union solidarity now more than ever before. ALPA is committed to supporting you and are proud to work alongside you day in and day out. The core truth of unions is that when we fight together, we win together. This is true within NATCA or ALPA. When we speak with one strong voice, we win. And this is true for the larger labor movement. When NATCA, ALPA, AFA, the entire AFL-CIO fight together, we all win. In aviation, we are all in this together. We will continue to fight together, and we will continue to win together. You have my commitment.
I appreciate it, brother, and go get them on the hill this week. We're proud to stand with you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Airline Pilot Podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. And if you enjoyed this episode, let your fellow crew members know about the show. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, reach out to podcast@alpa.org. To listen and subscribe to the Airline Pilot Podcast or learn more about ALPA, check us out online at alpa.org or find us on all major podcast platforms. Until next time, this is the Airline Pilot Podcast. Production copyright ALPA 2025. All rights reserved. Thanks and have a safe flight.